Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth Your Time, Worth Your Money, an ongoing segment I do here where I have a look at the opening hours of new and upcoming games. And today we're talking about Whiskerwood. Now I actually did cover a demo build briefly as part of the Steam Next Fest probably a week or two ago. We had a look at the first 30 minutes. You know, it was a very basic sort of let's play episode, but it was great, and since then I've been very pumped to check this out now. So I've got my hot little hands on the release early access build, tragically, but release build nonetheless. And the pedigree behind it is it's being developed by Minkata Dynamics, who did Railgrade a few years ago, which I really liked. Sort of a train track laying sort of transport logistics puzzler. Very cool game, a great first outing for these guys. Still highly recommend checking it out. So that got me excited, and it's being published by Hooded Horse, who probably are my favorite publishers in the scene at the moment. Safe to say that if Hooded Horse is doing it, I'm going to give it a go. And with all that said, I can quite happily say not only has they stuck the landing, and this is an excellent game in its own right, but it's probably one of my favorite colony manager type games to hit the scene in recent years. So very high praise. If I had to do some like close comparisons, I think there's a bit of Timberborn in here, but where Timberborn sort of hangs its hat on almost engineering and water management puzzles. If you haven't played that, it's like a colony builder, but you're a bunch of beavers, and there's a lot of dam mechanics just in the core of the game. It's very clever because it goes for that one mechanic and grabs onto it really hard. So damming up water reservoirs and using it to power machines and all that. Like I said, very clever. I wish that I've spent more time with that, but at first blush you can see a bit of that here. What is in truth going on, this takes more of the verticality of the colony building that you've seen in Timberborn, almost as a sort of side product of its endeavor to manage water. You know, at different elevations can give you flow, that sort of stuff, right? So there is a verticality to the building necessarily in Timberborn. And like I said, at first blush, you will see that comparison between the two of them, but that's sort of where it starts and ends. So the idea with Whiskerwood is that you are in this animal kingdom, I suppose. Is very much like the British Empire, the cats. They're the bad guys, right? And they're sending you out as sort of prospective colony ships to go and build up areas as the little whiskers. So you've essentially got a colony of these little mice. It's very cute, but with the cat overlords from society at large being the kind of antagonistic component. And so every couple of days they will send a tax ship out, and you have to pay them in goods basically. And it's a pretty aggressive doom mechanic. So you've got that in the background, and I think that sort of impetus is what really makes this game work. It makes these sort of games work in general. You know, like Against the Storm, another Hooded Horse game, has Queen's Impatience. It's a little bit more long form, or at least within the runs, I suppose. But yeah, with this, every couple of days you actually have to pay the tax man. And one of the best ways that the game even just tells you as an on-ramp, it's very gentle, it lets you off the leash very quickly, is trying to mine rare earth metals, you know, copper, gold, things like that. You'll get better returns. It cautions against things like using your build mats and your food to pay the tax. You know, obviously you don't want that. They kind of don't want you to do that, but at the same time they're going to bleed you as dry as they can. So it creates that impetus behind you, right? Get your fundamentals down, build up an industry, start making higher tier items, etc., so that you can pay the tax man more easily. So yeah, the marriage of mining and also this verticality of base building and movement leads to a pretty robust mining system where you can dig down into layers, and essentially you can dig anywhere you want, and the allocated miners within that area will just dig out that block and create mine shafts all the way down. The whole layering thing works as smoothly as you could possibly hope from like a much more abstract view system as looking at buried layers under the earth. And from there, I suppose you could come up with your own systems. You could probably send like a sounding shaft straight down to look at all the different layers and see if you can detect any other ores around them, that sort of thing. Or you could just open cut everything, fill your boots, There's a day-night cycle to the game, and it in a way plays out almost turn-based. You know, for a real-time game, it's phases, I suppose. So they work through the day, gathering and building and what have you, and it's all pretty standard fare for these sort of games. Allocate builders to buildings. For the most part, they just have a zone around them that they will interrogate, plop down little staircases and planked runways to make them move faster. Before long, you start to have this kind of little port shanty town, and honestly, it's pretty high praise when you can get me to not just engage with this sort of build system but really fall into it. As someone that really loves control and blocks and building city blocks in squares and cubes, right? I'm that kind of guy. I know a lot of people that go into this genre are like that. I've talked about this many times. Much more about function over form. Aesthetic is definitely secondary, but I just found the way that this plays out with the difficulty component, but also, you know, all the pathing, the AI, the characters, the telegraphing of any issues that you have, all of it falls so neatly into place that I did actually find myself really, you know, falling in love with my little shanty town and making little boardwalks, and the decoration systems are inspired in that along like a planked pathway, you can put edge decorations on it. I don't know how else to describe it. It's still part of the square that the pathway exists in. It's not like you're putting a garden and taking up valuable real estate. Again, another consideration if you have a brain like me. Why would I put down decorations when I could put down another house or something like that? So you can actually put little edges along your pathway, like little rope handrails or privacy walls or lanterns. So you can decorate it without it taking up real estate. Having said that, you can in turn put little gardens and that sort of thing that'll take up a 1x1 square, and the way that the basic buildings are, they're sort of like a little L shape, and generally speaking, it's still early days. I'm sure there's a great way to min-max efficiency of building, just like something like Timberborn, but the little cutaway is the perfect spot to put a little hanging garden or something like that, a flower bed, and before you know it, in between things, I've actually given my thing a bit of personality, a bit of aesthetic, which is something I never ever do, so that to me is a job well done and a victory to be proud of. But yeah, look, a lot of the mechanics are what you would expect. At the moment, I'm sort of starting to try and fill out new building types that require like a higher tier, like a skills tradesman. I've got a school running, which is training dudes up slowly. My colony is about to run into trouble because I think it's been running for like maybe 10 days or something like that in game. They work during the day, and at night they go and eat and then go to sleep, right? But before I forget my point, I'm coming up against winter. The game didn't really telegraph that super well, and I'm thinking I can't grow crops during that time. It hasn't really told me that that's the case, but my farmers don't seem to be replotting. I mean, you could intuit a lot of this stuff, but honestly, for a game that telegraphs so much of it so well, I would have thought it would be a bit more explicit about that, even if you can kind of intuit it. So for a thing where I've been kind of treading water, I've been making progress and I haven't missed the tax or anything like that, but to say that I've ever really been in front with food would be a lie as well. So I wonder if I'm going to do a bit of a banished and brick my colony if I were to keep playing it beyond the time that I've given it now. Part of the charm, I suppose. Well, one thing I skipped over, day-night cycle, they work during the day and at night they come down to like the warehouse and eat food, and then they go to sleep, and it'll give you an end of day screen before you move on to the next day. And it will list off all the positives and negatives, and you'll get a currency. I can't remember what it's called, but it's sort of like these scrolls. It's like approval, I guess, which then can be in turn spent to recruit more dudes into your colony from ships that come by each day. Long and short, keep you guys happy. You'll be able to recruit more people. But it takes a bit of like a mood RimWorld-esque thing, right? And so when it piles up all the positives and negatives, you can use the negatives as a bit of a guide. And, you know, the quality of housing is something that starts to real come up. Obviously, if people are still hungry and you hadn't fed them, that you might need to address that. My little rat whisker dudes are starting to get a bit dirty, so I built them a bathhouse. And at nighttime, they'll go down, they'll eat from the warehouse, they'll go down to the bathhouse and hang out in there. It's very cute. They started getting angry about having to stand up eating from the warehouse, so I've built them little cafes and they come down and sit at their little bar stool. It's cool. It adds a bit of life to it, but the way that it's paced, you get to sort of enjoy that, I don't know, immersive downtime for a moment. You know, you're not going to build anything. You dudes are just eating and relaxing at the end of the day, but I don't know, there's something kind of The game and the flow of it allows you to take that 10 seconds to enjoy it yourself, as opposed to just being a system within a system, and I'm not taking shots at Against the Storm, one of the greatest games going, but that has a similar thing where they'll come back to the campsite, they'll eat, they'll go back to work, but it's always happening at all given times, depending on that dude and where he's at. You never really get to celebrate it or rest and stop and watch them sort of enjoy themselves because the game never really stops. And I kind of appreciate this little pause, this little moment to have a look at your little dudes putting their feet up at the end of the day and then in turn telling you what you gotten wrong, and that really sets you up well to what you're going to do for the next day of work. Anyway, to say that this is excellent is an understatement. To me, the greatest tragedy is that it's early access. I don't really allocate a lot of time for early access these days. So many games to cover at any given time. It'll get its time in the sun at 1.0. You better believe I'll be playing this when it does hit 1.0 in the future. But if you want to support it, give it a go. Maybe this is right up your alley and you don't mind that it's early access, and put 100 hours into it and then maybe 100 hours when it fully releases, who knows. But this game is excellent, and it's just proof positive that Hooded Horse are the best tastemakers in town from a publishing perspective. Anyway team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.